why should a man heal? So I must tell you, I struggled so much with this subject, in as much as it's something that I understand and I know, and I can work with men one-on-one, and we take them through their healing, or I take them through their healing. It is quite challenging to do a video for YouTube, a video that I don't want to exceed 20 minutes, at least for now. Once the channel grows and, we have a community, I can take them longer. But for now, I really want to remain succinct, clear, and just stick to the subject and stick to the matter. But I have to be honest, that this was a bit of a challenge for me, for many reasons. I mean, one of the reasons is that um, I am a woman. I might understand men from the perspective of being the teacher that I am and the coach that I am, and having been around men, but I don't know men in a way that another man understands themselves. I can speak about the healing of women and how deep it goes and what it does and so on. But with men, I can only speak from really what I think I understand. So that was challenge number one. Challenge number two, because I'm a Black South African woman, when I say men need to heal, I am specifically, in a way, speaking to South African Black men. And I'm also speaking to South African Black men of my era and my generation, based on my age group and maybe slightly younger and slightly older. The people that are 10 years ahead of me, older than me, and 10 years younger than me, those are the men I kind of understand. And those are the men that I'm referring to. But yes, even if you are much younger than that or much older than that, yes, it will touch you. So that is challenge number two, because then I am limited to the kind of men that I know and understand. The third reason that made this one very, very complex and hard to create is just the whole political layers of, being a Black man in South Africa. I mean, the entire continent of Africa has experienced, except for Ethiopia, of course, has experienced colonization at varying degrees. But then with South Africa, we had that extra layer of apartheid that messed us up even more, but in particular, Black men. And I say in particular Black men because, men carry a very, very potent masculine energy. Men are carriers of the masculine energy. In as much as a woman, I have a little bit of masculinity because it's a yin yang. We have both energies, which is a subject I teach on my Patreon. If you're interested in understanding the deep layers of masculinity and femininity, it is a subject that I have dedicated time to teaching as energies. So I'm not going to waste a lot of time here. If you're interested in that, you can then join us there on Patreon. The details are somewhere here in the video. But men or male humans are custodians of the masculine energy. And masculine energy is energy of leadership, energy of authority, energy of the first. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying women can't lead or they don't have authority or so on. So my feminist followers, my feministas, please don't claw my eyes out. I'm talking energies here. And women, female people also have masculine energy and they can carry it. In fact, as we speak now, a lot of South African Black women are leading with masculine energy in their homes, which is a topic for another day, right? So because men have been given the masculine energy of leading, of authority, of running things, when an oppressive system like apartheid messes with that and treats you as a little boy when you're a man, that does something to your psyche, that does something to your spirit, that does something to your emotional body, which is why then healing of a Black man or healing of a South African Black man becomes so, so important, but it also becomes so delicate and so complex. And so that was that was point number three that made it hard for me to just create this video. So I wanted to just disclaimer that first, so that when I start talking and say, why is it that you need to heal as a man, you have the appreciation, or you understand that I appreciate the complexities of what this is, and I view it with humility and with reverence, or rather I take this subject with great humility and with great reverence. Now, with that out of the way, let us talk about why is it that you need to heal as a Black man. First and foremost, when a Black man heals, or when a man heals, so you'll know that I'm talking about Black men, right? So I'm just going to say when a man, for ease of speaking. When a man heals, he immediately becomes a safe place for people to be. He leads with safety. He leads with compassion. He leads with fairness. He leads, and when I say he leads, I mean in both macro and micro. So in both the big structures and also in the home structures or in the personal and so on. And I say this now, and I mean, I'm recording this in July of 2025. And July of 2025 is when General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi has revealed such bombshells of the rot in our leadership, in the political leadership and business leadership, essentially saying that the entire leadership or the leadership of South Africa might just be captured and might just be run by a criminal cartel. Details are still scattered, but the community and the society is behind him. Somehow we believe him. And maybe because we can feel, you can feel the rot. It's got a funny smell. And because as human beings, when we hear the truth, we recognize the truth. You might not know how, but you recognize that the semblance of truth. And I'm not in any way saying Nhlanhla is the angel here and he's telling the truth. But when we feel something truthful or something magnificent, we respond. But more than that, General Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi exercised a kind of leadership that is steeped in masculinity that is healed. Do you know what I'm saying? When you heal as a man, your leadership somehow becomes fair, becomes direct, becomes purified, and becomes focused. If there's one thing that masculinity was given is the power of focus. Masculinity focuses. When you find yourself focusing, really going for the target and being direct, you know that you are enacting your masculine energy. Now we bring it to the general if you can appreciate what I've just said, and then you bring it to the general or average man in South Africa, average black man in South Africa, you find that there is lack of direction, there is lack of focus. Not all, guys, not all, not all. But if you really, really think about it, and I'll give you specific examples. Just recently, I've been doing a bit of work in the college where I live in Beaufort West, the TVET college. And I even ended up invigilating, can you believe it? And what I noticed was that in every class, if there's 60 students in a class, 52 will be girls and 8 will be boys. And of all that 8, you'll find that maybe 4 are serious, the others are just being pushed. So there is a sense of no direction, no focus, no leadership, no structure, just chaos and chaotic misdirection in the boys. And I remember asking the headmaster, saying, so Vele, the college is just a girls' college. And it's like, yeah. And already from registration, the number of boys are small. But as the years go by, as they get to N5, N6, the more they drop off, drop off, drop out. And I don't have to tell you this, guys. We are South African, we see it, we have a problem. The large group of unemployed people are black men, black young men, and older men. I mean, I'm based in Beaufort West, and it's a small town. There's around 60,000 population here, or 62. And a lot of men around my age group and slightly younger are unemployed or are doing manual jobs. So there is a spirit of and and you understand that I'm saying this with knowing what I said earlier. Oppression, apartheid, colonialism, the economic pressure, which I'm going to get to, and all that makes leaves us with the caliber of men that we are dealing with just a handful of those that are the men that a lot of women, would aspire to have as partners and so on, or the men that we would love to have leaders. They are very, very small. So healing, when men heal, in as much as we have the history that we have, a lot of these lethargic problems, a lot of young people who are unfocused will disappear just like that. Because if you're a man and you have 2 sons or you have daughters even, and you take the time to say, you know what, I am going to go for healing. And if you don't know what healing is, go to my other video where I spoke about what healing is not and what healing is. Very short videos, but they give you a taste and an understanding of what I'm talking about, because I'm not going to do that here. But when you embark on healing and you start to say, actually, what on earth is going on with me? What have I been through? Who am I? And you start peeling those layers. Your healing will be felt by your sons. It will be felt by your partner if you have a partner, and it will transform and change your home if you're in a home or your environment. So a healed man is a man that will lead. You heal and you lead. You do not lead when you have not healed, which is why we have so much corruption that Mkhwanazi spoke about, because we are being led by a bunch of unhealed, greedy, um, really toxic people who are in our leadership as a collective. And I'm not talking just politics, I'm also talking in the business sector and so on. So there is a lot of healing that a man needs to do so that we can be led. Femininity does not lead. As women, we are custodians of feminine energy. Once again, guys, I'm not saying women can't lead. Women can lead. I am a leader in my own space, in my own industry, and that means I'm using masculine energy to lead. I'm a leader at an investment firm that I'm part of, where I'm chairperson, and I immediately feel that I'm using masculine energy when I lead there. So masculinity, femininity are energies. Energies, they are not thing. When I say masculine, I don't mean men. I mean masculine energy, right? So, but women, are custodians of feminine energy, and feminine energy by its very nature leads differently. It leads in other ways, but differently. And we'll get there one day when I teach them here. But if you're interested in those subjects, please go on Patreon, because I go deeper there, right? So yeah, when a man heals, he becomes safe to be, because you know that you are led, you know that you are following someone who has a vision, you are following someone who has direction, you are following someone who understands what time it is. Is it time for discipline? Is it time for this? Is it time for that? And this is the beauty of masculine energy. It is very, very precise. The metaphor for masculine energy is the sun. The sun rises from the east and it sets in the west every day for thousands and thousands of years. It is direct, it is straightforward, it knows we can rely on it. So when a man is healed, when a man heals, he becomes very, very reliable, very, very dependable. So if you find yourself that you are not relied upon, you are not reliable, you're not dependable, you need a lot of healing. You need healing. So a healed man is a man that we can depend on, is a man that understands the weight of leading others. And when you understand the weight of leading others, you immediately become reliable and you immediately become dependable. A healed man understands their own strength, and they know that strength is not domination. It's power, but it's not domination. And a healed man has this thing of deep and quiet power, where you don't really have to say much. I mean, you look at a home, a functional home. Let's say you have, of a home where there's a mommy and a daddy, and it is relatively functional. When we misbehave as children, when children in that home misbehave, what generally happens? What does the mother say? We're going to tell your dad. And your dad does not even have to say a word. That's why dads don't beat up children. A man that beats up children is a man that needs healing. A manager that beats up anyone, because you have enough power and enough authority in your very presence, such that you don't need to raise your hand on anyone. So if you find yourself really just enacting anger and beating people up, and you know that you need healing. You know that you need healing, because the very fact that you're a man and you have masculine authority, you don't have to say much. You don't have to say much. A healed man says very, very little and speaks. When you speak with authority, and we hear you, but you are also not scary. We don't fear you. If your family fears you, if you are scary to your family, you know that you need healing, which obviously reminds me of my own father. My dad was very quiet, which is a masculine trait. Men don't talk a lot, especially in the home, because the home belongs to a woman, if in case you don't know, which we'll talk about when we do the women, why a woman needs to heal. So my dad never really spoke much, which is it's a male trait, it's a masculine trait, but his was obviously layered with a lot of trauma that he experienced. You can go to one of my videos, in one of the videos where I spoke about daddy issues. and another one that's titled A Tale of Two Grandfathers. I talk about my dad a lot. But my dad was a man who had a lot of pain, which was covered by anger, which was suppressed obviously during the week because he's saying nothing, and it will explode in a weekend when he's had a drink and he's fighting my mother and he's beating up my mother and screaming at us and all that. And that is a man that needs healing. That is a man whose silence is not a silence that is calm, that is approachable. It's a man whose silence is like, yay, alifawa. Do not even come near me. Okay. So that's why a man needs to heal. If you find that you have a lot of suppressed anger, or if you find that you can only talk and scream at people when you've had a little bit to drink, maybe a lot to drink, actually a lot to drink, then you know that there is a lot of healing that you need to do. A man needs to heal in order to break those cycles. I spoke in one of the videos about my grandfather and my father, and, my brothers, and I don't want to speak about family members here per se, but residues of a father like that will touch you somehow. So when you heal, then as a man, you break those cycles. When you look at your life back, when you look at your life and say, okay, I have this trauma, that issue. And when I say trauma, I mean small t, sometimes big T, but small t. Little traumas, small t traumas are maybe there was a bit of food insecurity. You guys were poor. You didn't have luxuries. Just those socio-economic issues cause small t trauma. Big T trauma is if things were happened to you, like you were molested, you were beaten up, you were abandoned and all that. So there are different types of traumas. Maybe I should do a video on that. But then again, saying small T trauma, big T trauma is also weird because you don't know how people process things. You might think this is a small trauma, but it's huge for someone else. So there's that dynamic, but there's a standard way. It's like, yeah, there are certain traumas that if they didn't happen to your own body, where they scar you deeply, they're called trauma with a small T. Anyway, when you begin to open up and say, okay, I have this trauma and that trauma and that trauma, and I need healing here, and you give those things space and you allow them to come through you, and you allow tears to come through, and you purify yourself with that, and you do the work, you see a therapist, you see a coach, or whatever it is that you do, but you actually do the work. You don't watch a video like this or read a book and say you are healing. You actually do the work. You do the journaling, you do the affirmations, you do the meditations, and you do the crying. Speaking of crying, one of you, in fact, it's a big fan of the channel. I think he's one of the first subscribers of the channel. So this guy was asking, the commenter was asking that, am I saying that men who don't cry are a red flag, and he was defending the fact that he's fine, he's a good guy. I mean, he watches this channel, so we are talking about someone who's serious about their own well-being and personal development. So what do I mean? A man who doesn't cry is dangerous, because that's sort of what I said. I said it is dangerous to date a man who doesn't cry. I suppose what I meant, and maybe it was a hyperbole there, I was exaggerating a little bit there. I suppose what I'm trying to say is that you want a man who releases their emotion from time to time. You really want to say, you want a man who, when he's in deep, deep pain, for whatever reason, they can have their private moment of crying. I'm not saying they must cry on your shoulder and you must see them cry all the time, because that's like, wow. But I am saying that if a man never, ever, ever shows emotion of deep sadness, of showing deep pain to a point of releasing a tear, that is a very, very weird space. We are dealing with someone who has deep, deep complex trauma. When I was reading the comment, I was smiling, and I'm like, of course you've never cried like a baby. That doesn't mean that you have not healed. That does not mean that you are not healing. But crying is one of the best ways to release a lot of toxins out of your body. When you cry, I mean, this, you can Google this, or you can chat GPT this, the benefits of crying. And that's why when we grieve of a loss of a parent or a loss of someone through death, that's why the crying is such an intense thing. And there's different crying for different things. There's a cry that comes from the tummy. There's a cry that comes from the chest, from the heart. There's a cry that's from the throat. There's different cries to purify where it hurts. So I wasn't saying cry for everything. I was saying that crying is part of a deep, deep healing. No, they're not a red flag because they don't cry, especially when you know that this person is into healing, this person loves personal development. But I suppose I was talking about someone who never, ever, ever, ever shows emotion of sadness, of going through pain, but then they lash out or they drink or they do other things. So that's what I was meaning by dangerous. Or one day, so those men who never cry, they wake up one day and they shoot everybody and off themselves as well. That's probably an extreme situation that I put there. So I apologize if I scared you, but no, all I was saying was tears are really purifying, and tears are an acknowledgement of a sadness or of some form of pain. Okay, so what else do I want to say before this video becomes longer than it should be? As you know, I really try not to have long videos. Where are my notes? I made some quick notes here. Maybe I will do this next week because I can see it's going to be long, because I wanted to say, what does a healed man look like? You know, emotionally grounded, you know, someone who is really takes accountability and responsibility. Maybe we can do that next time. Just to keeping to the theme of not having too long videos. But anyway, to conclude this video, you need to heal to break cycles. You need to heal to be a safe space for your people, your woman, your children, your community, the people that you are leading at work. You need to heal so that you are a formidable leader, so that you own your power. You can never own your power when you haven't healed. Never. I don't care who you are. You never fully step into your power unless you are healed. Think of any man that you admire, anyone, whether it's famous or not, and tell me if they any men that you admire, who you admire their power, how they've stepped into who they are, and tell me if those men are healed or not. You see, so you can never ever lead anyone with great authority and take them far when you haven't healed. And I haven't even touched about relationships, which probably I'll touch about it. I'll touch on it when I speak about how does a healed man look like. Okay, so let's conclude it then. Let's leave it here, and we'll continue next week about what does a healed man look like, and then we'll touch about healed men in relationship space specifically, because that's a video on its own. All right. So I hope this was helpful, even though I feel like it was all over the place. But you know, it happens. It's a very, very sticky topic, and I gave it a stab. So yeah, we'll talk about the rest in the next video before we get to women. So next video, what does a healed man look like? Okay, this is my story, and I cannot wait to hear yours.